Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
This is the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Sharon and Eric Lopez.
Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. My name is Jeff Sharon. Joining me today, we got a full house. We got Eric Lopez in the house. What's up, Elo?
Oh, not much. Slow news, slow day.
Slow news day, yeah. We got Kyle Nash here, the student of the game, joining us. What's up, Kyle?
Glad to be aboard, gentlemen. Proving once again that you can't spell more talk without Timo. Little reference what we got going on today.
Oh boy,
we got a lot of people on this show.
We got a lot. Yeah, this is a full house, man. Like I feel like I should have, prepared a charcuterie for this show, man. Bryson Turner's here. What's up, Bryson?
I'm doing great. Jeff's semester is over. I am free from academic.
Oh, I bet you're happy. That's right.
Yes. And after everything that's broken today, oh man, I am excited.
Bryson's the only person on this show that didn't do an interview today on this show.
No, it's Bryson being a student, just, had a Red Bull, and, this is what we're too old for that, to quote Danny Glover. But anyway, listen, we got a huge show for you today. Two massive interviews that you're going to love. First up in this segment, Terry Mohajir, Athletic Director, Vice President at UCF, dropping some news on us left and right that you're going to want to hear, and giving us an inside look. I mean, this is the first time we've had Terry on the show, just on a one-to-one basis, although it was 1-2 with me and Eric. But every bit as awesome as well. I mean, we didn't have enough time with him. And not his fault. I mean, it's obviously, but I could sit there and talk with Terry for like 3 hours on stuff because he's so engaging to talk to. He's and you're going to love this interview coming up. In the second segment, new head coach of UCF women's basketball, Sytia Messer, in the house, joining us to talk about the state of her program coming up. She's in the process right now of adding not just players to her roster, which was, obviously, like we've talked about before, decimated by transfers and graduations, but adding her assistant coaches, which she announced on Wednesday, including a familiar face. We talk with Coach Messer about that, get a little bit more in depth on her background, her playing career, her coaching career. Kyle, you and I are going to debrief that. And later on in segment 3, Bryson is going to talk with us about some postseasons. We're also going to talk about baseball and of course Eric Lopez.
For like 30 seconds, folks. Don't worry, we're going to keep it positive on this show.
Well, baseball played down in Miami today.
Like I said, we're keeping it positive.
They scored double figures against Miami. I just want to state that for the record. And a little bit of transfer news, and most especially Eric Lopez is going to catch us up on softball and another historic weekend. We got so much on this show, man.
Yeah, you're going to hear from Cindy. In fact, you're going to hear for the first time from Cindy Ball-Malone talking about winning the conference championship and what's ahead in Greenville.
I know it's big for UCF winning that regular season championship. They play one less game in the American tournament. They don't get whacked on the RPI quite as much. Are they going to host, Eric Lopez? Are they going to host?
Stay tuned. We'll break that down.
All right. So first, let's get to the main man on this show here in the first segment, the boss himself, Terry Mohajir, Vice President and Director of Athletics for UCF. Joining us, the boss himself, UCF's Athletic Director, Terry Mohajir, joining us for the very first time on our program. Terry, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for taking time for us. We've been trying to get you on here since you signed on, and we finally did it. How are you, man?
Great, man. Well, I love The Boss. Every time I hear the word The Boss, I think of Bruce Springsteen. So,
See, now you're talking
yeah,
my language.
so definitely, yeah. So, Born to Run, huh? Anyway, you're probably too young to know Bruce Springsteen, aren't you?
No,
Oh,
we love Bruce
no,
Springsteen.
no.
Come on.
Oh
We're-
my
Okay.
God. Dude,
Come on.
I am from New Jersey, man.
Oh, hell, then that's your theme
Patron
song. Born
saint
to
of the
Run.
Garden State. Yeah.
Oh man,
I love his
that's your
earlier
theme
stuff.
song. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
there's a lot of appropriate lyrics in his songs that remind the guys that are over 50 can definitely relate to. So, hey, glad to be on, and thanks for inviting me. And I'm excited to talk to you guys.
All right, let's dive right in. So I wanted to ask you first about, some questions about, what your past and how you came here. And I know it's been a while, but you came into, one of the things that I was excited about when you came on board is you came into looking at your background into athletic administration from coaching. And that used to be pretty common in college athletics, but now it's not so much. I feel like most ADs and administrators these days follow like the career administrative path.
Yes.
right out of the gate in their careers. But I sense in watching you and I think of like when you were on the sidelines at the football games, you still have a lot of coach in you still. How does that inform your approach as an athletic
Well,
director?
it's not just the coach, it's also the former student athlete. I was, played college football, coached, and as an AD, there's not many ADs, sitting ADs in the country that have done all three. There's a few, and I think it's definitely helped us with shaping our principles and just the way that we manage on a daily basis with our coaches and our student athletes. It's not very common anymore. You've got a lot of sports management or MBAs that are or even law degrees that are in our space now. I do think there's some missing elements with some of those folks, and I'm not saying every one of them, but some of the folks that haven't been through it before. And you've heard this saying, you don't have to have a heart attack to be a heart surgeon. Well, but you have to know the heart very intricately to be a heart surgeon. And I think without being on the fields and sweating during 2 days or whatever the sport you may have played and coached the student athletes and have done curfew and have had student athletes come to your room and say, I don't have any money. My family's, got this challenge going, or I've got a girl for me. My girlfriend just broke up. I mean, those are all missing elements. That's part of the management and connectivity with your students and your personnel. Your staff is really important. Listen, it's a very emotional enterprise, very emotional game. And, listen, I get tough on staff, but I also try to love them up at times. And, just like a coach does with their, in order to, get tough and be pretty rigid and a little more edgy, you have to also have a relationship to do that, or it just becomes a toxic relationship. So, the best coaches in the business that you see just get on their players and the players stay and they stick. Those are the ones that have really good relationships with their players. The national media will see, oh, he's yelling at that kid. Like, how do you yell at somebody like that? Well, you know what? They usually have the ones that don't have good relationships, those kids won't stick. And so I think it translates right into staff members. And so, I think those have really helped and served me well. The other portion of that, I knew what it was like when I graduated, right before I graduated college, and I didn't have any skills. And so that's why the 100% job placement or grad school placement program that we have is so important to me, because I saw hundreds of athletes that finished their eligibility that weren't prepared for the real world, and they weren't going to go to the NFL or the NBA. And, that was why my core principles every single day is about student leadership, student academy, academics, career services, not to mention the competition on the field. The other portion is career services, and you're judged by your alumni. And, I don't want any Knights that finish their eligibility here to not have a job. And we're the only school in the country that guarantees that. And it's not an easy task, but it's the right task in my mind. And I'm surprised if more schools don't do it. I'm glad we're the only school that does it. And I think a lot of that has to do with me being a former player and former coach. And, it's just helped shape my views and my principles in this space. So sorry, that was a long answer.
No. Well, I mean, you've been here for a year and a half now, just about. You've already accomplished a lot, but what was your biggest surprise in this first year and a half here in Orlando?
Well, I knew the fan base was passionate. And so that was not a surprise, but that was very refreshing about how passionate the fan base is and how large it is. I think the thing that probably surprised me the most is how the students love going to school here. I'm not just talking about student athletes. Students and student athletes love the school. And one of the first things I did when I came on campus, maybe the first week and a half, I got about 100 Starbucks gift cards and walked on campus and gave a $5 Starbucks gift card to every student I could see and just talk to them. Hey, I introduced myself. My name is Terry Mohajir. Go get a Starbucks on behalf of the athletic department. And just to talk to them, hey, how do you like school? I've talked to every, what your ethnic background was. You look like an introvert or an extrovert. Some would barely talk. But I always said, hey, how do you like going to school? Do you like school? I love it. Almost every one of the students said they loved the school. And that gave me a lot of excitement, because when you have your greatest ambassadors are your students and your former students. And when you have that type of passion for your campus of how much they love the school, you can do a lot. And that was one of my biggest surprises. And even when my first day on the job, I met with the football team before I did my press conference, and I brought the leadership committee together and I asked them all, do you love campus? I mean, we didn't have one transfer. We were in between coaches. We didn't have one kid that put themselves in the transfer portal at all. And so it's very refreshing. And that was probably my biggest excitement. But we have done a lot of things, and we've had a lot of initiatives. We got a lot of things done. We're not going to stop now. We got a lot more to do.
Well, one of the biggest things, obviously, in your tenure that you've had to this point, obviously the move to the Big 12, and it's for our perspective, for me and Eric, we started school at the start of this century as students, and back when we were D1 independent, and so to see UCF now on the verge of joining the Big 12 is both phenomenal and also really fulfilling, because we always thought that this program could compete at that level. So let me ask you real quick about that. What's the latest on the Big 12 move, the buyout and all that? I know you're eyeball deep in those negotiations.
Yeah, we're still working on that. That's an ongoing situation. So really nothing new to report except that we're working on it. It's been collegial and just trying to figure out a number. I mean, you read some stuff out there, so that's pretty bland there. We're just working on it and nothing real exciting to report. But the one thing I will tell you that about the conference realignment stuff, I figured it out. I've been through 6 conference realignments in my career.
Wow.
6. And so I think that the one thing that, it never really came up when I was interviewing, to be honest with you. Hey, what's your experience with conference realignment? But after I thought about it, I was like, you know what? I've been prepared. I was in the Big 12 twice when it had conference realignment. Went from the Big 8 to Big 12. I was working there. And then the second time I worked there in Kansas, we went from, you brought in TCU, Colorado, Nebraska, and A&M left. And the Sun Belt, I was in the Sun Belt FAU. We joined the Sun Belt. And then we went through it twice in my last place. So I was prepared. I was always preparing for conference realignment. And even at my previous school, we were preparing for conference realignment. And so I felt like I had a pretty good handle on at least that being prepared. Now, whether you get invited or not, that's a whole different situation. So when we first got here, one of the first things I did was I tried to get with as many analytics people, national analytics people, to get our numbers situated. And so not knowing when the Oklahoma Texas thing came up, we had a bunch of stuff that's already out there in the media. And I think it just became, we were kind of reading the tea leaves a little bit, nothing like we knew that was going to happen definitively, but we just thought, hey, there was something that was kind of brewing a little bit out there. You just got to be prepared, and didn't know where it was going to come from. You just kept hearing some stuff. At least I was. And so, that's why you got to go to these national events and national things, and you got to talk to media, and you got to develop relationships, because they will talk to you about that. And you can hear, and, in our business, what I have learned is that even though it seems like a myth, or it seems like too good to be true, that there might be a little truth behind it. So I felt like, and then, some of the strategies we had last year with my first board of trustees meeting, where we introduced the football campus, that was very strategic as far as, and that was a conceptual design. We're going to relook at those, how if we want to stay with those designs or maybe tweak that a little bit. But President Cartwright was completely on board with that. And it made national news. It showed that we're making a commitment to this space, and we're making a commitment to get to a different level of competition. And thank God it worked.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to ask you about that in a second. But one of the two of the big things I think that that Eric and I have talked about a number of times is, once you get to the Big 12, whenever that happens, 2023, 2040, there's two big things that are going to be on the docket. Number one is going to be the TV contracts with the Big 12. And the other thing is going to be that New Year's 6 bowl tie-in, because that kind of is, I think people forget that, like, that bowl tie-in is what really glues the CFP together. So what has been your experience in your dealings with some of the Big 12 administrators and the other folks in that conference about where they are in terms of getting those things done?
Well, when you say the Big 12 when you say the New Year's 6, I mean, that's a qualifying. You have to be ranked in the top 12 to be in the New Year's 6, and that's the hope. So you got to. That's really on you. I mean, you got to beat the teams you're playing. You got to schedule appropriately, and we're a little bit behind the 8 ball on that. And the whole idea is the Big 12 wants to, from my understanding, the Big 12 wants to compete for a national championship. Listen, the American competed for a national championship this year. We were in the race. And so that's the goal. That doesn't change. And how do you get to how do you schedule? How do you prepare your teams and when to get you, if you're competing for the Big 12 championship, you got to, most likely you'll be playing in a New Year's 6 bowl. Well, you will be playing in a New Year's 6 bowl. So that's the New Year's 6 bowl question you ask. But now we got to change our mindset a little bit. We got to reprogram our brains, because our school has always been about the New Year's 6 bowl. No, now we need to start talking about being in the playoffs. Yeah. That's what we need to start thinking about. How do we position ourselves to be in the playoffs? How do we position ourselves from a scheduling, funding, facilities wise to compete at the highest level? And if you compete in the conference championship in the Big 12 and you win it, you got a real good shot to be in the top 4. And you know what? Hopefully by 25, there'll be 12 teams. And so that's why we have to reprogram our brains a little bit. And reprogram our brains and start talking about national championships. I am 100% confident that we can compete in a national championship in every sport we have. We got some work to do in basketball, men's basketball. We're behind a little bit in men's basketball compared to the funding models in that league. Facility wise, we're in great shape. Our arena will fit in perfectly in that league, but the competition is obviously the best. And they've had 4 Final Four teams in the last 4 years. So it is second to none. It is first by a long shot on the net and all the power rankings. So we got some work to do there. And I know Coach Dawkins is working hard. And he picked up some really solid recruits that he feels really good about. So, so I think so, Jeff, to your point, New Year's 6 is something we should be thinking about every year. It's the playoffs that we need to be in now.
No doubt. A question, of course, on-field success. I want to ask you, obviously, softball's big story right now. It just won the American Conference regular season title in the mix there, perhaps. be a national seed and host. And I've been asked a bunch of questions about this, so I'll ask you, what can you tell us as far as UCF and the possibilities of hosting the year they've had? Because I've seen you a lot at the softball games, so I know I've seen you at all the sporting events, but I see you almost every time at softball. What are your thoughts?
Thank you for I try to I go over there and stand by the dugouts. I love being around our students and our coaches. I love watching them compete. That's my favorite part of what I do. We got a bunch of outstanding young ladies, not only academically, but just unbelievable character. And I'm very excited about our program. Bear is doing an unbelievable job. She's a really good coach, and we're excited to have her. Regionals, well, it just all depends probably on the conference championship. We're preparing to host one if we can. We'd love to host one. We'd have to bring in some bleachers. It came up, and there's a significant cost to that, but we'll figure out how to pay for it. I'm not concerned. I told our staff, you bid on it, we'll pay for it. I couldn't even look our athletes in the eyes and say, listen, I'm not going to bid on the regional to host just because of cost. We'll figure out that we'll raise the money if we have to. So that's no issues. It's not, so hopefully we have a chance to do it, and it'll be exciting if we can.
What has that brought up maybe some thoughts about what to do? Because people have asked me about the facilities. Does it need some renovations down the road and things like that? Not just in softball, but some of the other sports. What are some of the things you think could need to be addressed down the road as far as the facilities? I know you've talked about football and obviously basketball. What about some of the other sports?
Yeah, we know all of our sports. So one of the things that we did for softball was one of my first projects here when I got here. I saw that was drastically needed. We redid their locker rooms. We redid their coaches' offices. We redid the fence. You can see, Eric, out there, the fence, the padding we put out there. We redid Absolutely. The dugouts. We're not finished with softball. We'd like to expand it. There is no question in my mind that we can compete for a national championship in softball. Bear's doing a fantastic job with staff, brought in a bunch of new staff members, and just recruiting. She's doing a great job. She's also great honor. She's an assistant coach on the national team, asked to be on the national. So she's got a lot of credibility nationally. So we're happy to have her, and we've still got a lot of work to do softball wise, but we have a lot of work to do every sport. Everybody thinks that football gets a lot, but we've got a lot of work to do with them, our facilities. We've got some back of the house stuff to work on, men's and women's basketball, volleyball. So soccer's in pretty good shape. We'd like to do some stuff with the stadium. We'd like to one day, if all possible, move that track out there. I've talked to Dana Boone, which is another great coach that we have. We had a dinner last night for their team to wish them best of luck in Wichita this weekend for the conference championship. And like to build a whole area over there by softball that's an Olympic sport area with tennis and driving range and tracks and all kinds of stuff. Ooh. So I have a whole plan for that as well, vision. So it'd be cool.
Ooh, any renderings in the
I have renderings. Yeah, I have renderings. Yep.
Ooh, so exciting! I can't wait to see that stuff. That actually brings me to another question real quick. And I know
we had all that ready last summer, but we did the football complex. But I wanted people to focus on the football complex, just because of where we were nationally and just the relevance of the national landscape of conference realignment.
Yeah. Let me ask you too, real quick, about men's soccer, because of course, the Big 12 doesn't have men's soccer. I remember I asked you this before, but any update on that? What conference they might be going to?
I don't know if we've announced that yet. Probably they're going to get mad at me. You're probably going to go to the Sun Belt in soccer. So
really, no, I haven't seen an announcement. So wow, we've broken some news here.
Yeah. So,
on the pod. Wow, the Sun. That's huge, man.
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't.
League is no joke.
Well, it's not a done. I mean, it's not. We haven't been, but yeah, we're going to be going with some other really good teams and in that league. And it's going to be. I mean, as you know, Marshall's in that league. They won the national championship. So.
Yep.
Yeah. So
And all the P5 schools that don't have a men's soccer home, Kentucky, South Carolina, there's one other, I'm forgetting, West Virginia, they're in there too. Wow. Well, that's awesome. Congratulations on that. It's going to be fun. Real quick, I want let me drop out some other rapid fire things here real quick. Any update
that's not until we all we're still going to be in the American until until we're out of the conference. But we'll definitely, once we get in, once we exit, they'll be joining the Sun Belt and we'll be joining the Big 12. So
gotcha. All right. So
I think our coach is really excited about that too.
Oh yeah. I know Scott's going to be excited about that. James
Madison. I mean, you got really Coastal Carolina, those other teams that you mentioned, really, really good soccer.
Yeah. Real quick,
and the Americans really good soccer, men's soccer too. So that's not.
Yeah, they added some really good programs too. So it's going to be a busy year in the American this year.
Yeah.
Real quick, a little rapid fire because I know you got a meeting coming up. Any update on naming rights for the Bounce House?
Yeah, we're getting close.
Okay,
working on it. Yeah. So
all right.
Can't give you more updates. Just we don't have anything signed, but we're getting close. So
last bit from me. Any possibility of are you looking at the possibility of adding some sports when UCF gets to the Big 12?
Not at this time. If, we got to look at our participation numbers. And I get a lot of people, I get a lot of advice on Twitter from adding sports.
I hear you on that.
The one sport that I would love to add, but it does we have to look at our participation, it would be men's track, just because the Big 12 is really good men's track. And, you got Houston over there, obviously with their powerhouse, they're a really good program with on the men's side, and Kansas historic program, and just a lot of good. Texas Tech won the national championship. I mean, so it would be something, but just be down the road a little bit. And that would be, also to have to, Dano's comfort level with that which she would be great. She'd be a great head coach for the men's side as well. There's no question. We'd have to add staff and some facilities and locker rooms and all that kind of stuff. So it's not something, adding sports is just not, giving someone a uniform in a facility. It's recurring dollars, scholarships, fee, nutrition, strength coaches, trainers. I mean, it brings a lot of expenses to it. And right now we're just trying to properly fund our current sports. That is our goal, to be in the top half of the Big 12, or hopefully in 5 years, be in the top third of the Big 12. But those goalposts are always moving because they're also increasing their revenues as well. So very established. I mean, we're going to be in a league with schools that have been playing football since the 1800s.
It's wild when you think about it, right?
I know.
We've only been doing this since 1979, and here we are. So Terry Mohajir, athletic director for UCF. Man, we just did not have enough time.
We'll do it again.
We got to do this again. Well, we got the Charge On Tour coming up. I just wanted to get that out there too, because you got a couple more dates a little closer to home in the next couple of weeks. You're going to be in Port Canaveral on Tuesday, May 24th.
We can always do it before one of those if you wanted to.
Right. Yeah. Well, like I live in Oviedo, and you're going to be there on Thursday, May 26th. What do you say we hook up there?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. That sounds great. Sorry, I just got a text. I was like, what was that? Yes. That'd be great. We could do that. Right. For sure. I'd love to do that.
Terry, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on everything you've been doing. I know you've been so busy, but it's just been it's been a blast since you've gotten here. And Eric and I
do for us. We appreciate that. Thank you for doing that.
And Eric and I are always kind of like, we always understood the sort of chip on the shoulder institutionally that UCF is kind of always having. I feel like, and I feel like you get that. And so we're thankful.
Well, I get it. Not only do I get it, I have it. And, you go to these meetings, these national meetings, and you've got, these schools that look at you and, because they're 18 to 22-year-olds are better. They're like, it's a little bit of an arrogance type thing sometimes, and I love that. It just motivates me. And, we got a lot of wonderful people in this business, that are fantastic. One of my friends that I've got to know, Joe Castiglione, Oklahoma, one of the best guys in this business. And there's a lot of really, really good folks. But then you have people, and he was a former student athlete, came up the way that a little closer to what I did. But some of these folks that have come up through the sports management, MBA programs, law, that, that basically just the, how do I say this? The brand identification is just not there. Mm-hmm. So, which is something that we want to prove to the world that we belong and that we can compete at the highest level, and that we're going to be a force to be reckoned with in the near future. And but we have a lot to do, and we can't do it by ourselves. We got to have our fans and our key stakeholders, our community, to be involved, or the enterprise is not going to flourish the way that I believe it can. So, I maybe shouldn't have a chip on my shoulder, but maybe I've always taken the road less traveled, maybe, even as a student athlete, how I got recruited as a coach, whatever. And so that's why when this position opened up, I very candidly was not really interested in leaving. But then when this one, I was like, this fits my personality. I think I said that. And I've been watching for a long time, and I was in the state before, and I saw how students gravitated to this campus and how the passion, it just came to bubble up. And I still think we have a lot of room to grow.
I think you're right. I think Eric and I both agree with you on that.
That's exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Terry. Have a good one. We'll catch up with you again soon.
Thanks.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Wow. Thank you to Terry. Thank you to John Heisler also for setting this up for us. And getting us some time with Terry, who's, as we talked about, super busy because, he's handling business. I think people forget about this. Like, he and his staff are handling business for, as we found out, really actually 3 conferences right now. Not to mention everything that they're doing in terms of the fundraising and the sports administration. The more I learn about it, Eric, the more I don't know how these people do it. But wow, we had 3 huge bits of news coming from that. The first one I want to talk about, conference realignment news breaking on Black and Gold Banneret Podcast, huh? UCF men's soccer going to the Sun Belt, which is, Bryson, you and I, engaged in some reckless speculation several months ago about what would happen because the Big 12 doesn't sponsor men's soccer, what might happen. This was one of the options. And lo and behold, here it is. And looking at at what would be the new Sun Belt, guys, it would be, including UCF, an 11-team league. And this past season, the 2021 fall season, 5 teams made the NCAA tournament. 7 of them were in the top 70 of the RPI this past year. So I think it's fair to say, and obviously Terry mentioned Marshall winning the College Cup in 2020. This is, Eric Lopez, this is looking like the SEC of men's soccer now that UCF's heading into.
Well, they're setting that up that way. I mean, there's been a big landscape shift in men's soccer that we don't have enough time to get into that. But, the Sun Belt's been a big player in this. They're trying to make a power conference out of this. And you have a lot of the major programs like a Kentucky, South Carolina, West Virginia are in the league. So it makes sense. UCF now that's going to the Big 12, you kind of want to be with those buddies. And it's a strong league. Not the first time, though, that UCF athletics has been part in relations with the Sun Belt.
You're right.
Way back in the days, folks. Way back. Kyle and I were just a rumor at that point. Well, actually, more. Yeah, Kyle was a rumor. Prior to the A-Sun, UCF spent a cup of coffee on the Sun Belt Conference.
1991-92 was the year that UCF was in the Sun Belt. They were there for 1 year before they joined what was then the TAC, which became the Atlantic Sun in all sports. At that time, the Sun Belt did not sponsor football, American football. They wouldn't do so until 2021. But yes, you're right. UCF was in the Sun Belt for 1 year.
So it's kind of unique in that regard. So big for men's soccer. Obviously, that was a big question with all this movement. What would happen? Looks like we now know. Obviously, it's a point to emphasize this will not take place until UCF makes the move to the Big 12. Whenever that happens, we do not know as of this time when that will take place.
A lot of reporting out there about when it's going to take place, obviously, and like Terry talked to us, no real news on that front. But if Brett McMurphy and others reporting is to be believed, UCF is trying to get, along with Houston and Cincinnati, into the Big 12 as soon as possible.
We're just waiting for Kyle to just put the check. Just write the check, Kyle, and let's move on, man. Come on, right?
Kyle.
Come on, Kyle.
Come on. Let's empty the 401k, babe. Come on.
Listen, I've been on a shopping spree, getting over my depression of all the departure that had happened in women's basketball. And talking to Sytia Messer today was very helpful. So maybe I'll be able to find my ink pen.
I could tell you've got a haircut too. So clearly you're back on your game here with that.
That's
haircut.
right.
But yeah, no, look, the move in the Sun Belt is big. But look, other news that came from the interview though, I thought was fascinating. It looks like sounds like they're close to a deal to have a naming rights for the football stadium. I think that's big.
Yep.
And then the renderings for the other stadium. Obviously, I asked about softball and the hosting pot situation. He broke that down. So everybody that was asking me about what about the facilities and all that, you got your answer. And that was pretty cool to find out that there's some renderings in the works for the other sports, and why he didn't announce it because he was focused on, they wanted to focus on the football side when they announced those renderings.
As we have speculated on this podcast, by the way, gentlemen, that he was leading with the football hand to get the most public involvement.
Right. Which, is, as we all have talked about at length, right? Like football is the crown jewel at UCF. But Bryson, you had talked about it before. Like, you'd looked at some of those renderings that were in the Board of Trustees presentation last year, and you could glean some hints, right?
Oh yes. Back when Terry first revealed, I still remember this. This is actually social media wise, it was a very fun day. I realized that the soccer stadium did not have the track around it anymore. So it's like, that's interesting. So I ended up asking about it, and lo and behold, we got some responses on that. And the track was supposed to be moved somewhere. The idea of that. I like the idea of a soccer only facility. It's nice for a sport to have its own space, and considering what we saw in the background, because obviously they weren't really focusing on it that much, but it looked like a really interesting and very nice facility there. The only real question was, where was track going to go? And so from what Terry said, it looks like there's an option for it to go right by softball where the Arboretum is, which is very interesting. And I'm wondering how they're going to incorporate that to make sure they don't take too much of a slice out of the Arboretum. But I'm very excited to see some updates on that front.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of visions kind of come to fruition here, I think, which is exciting. I mean, for us old hats, right? I graduated in 2005. This is an exciting time. It's like with the Big 12, it's like Christmas for UCF athletics fans, especially for those of us who, can recall, going through the woods in order to get to the soccer stadium, which was not really a stadium. It was, there was some bleachers around the track and then the soccer field. And then like the scorers area they would put up a temporary tent next to the field. And then we would have like temporary PA speakers put up there. And to now see this, really develop and come to fruition, I think is really, it's so exciting. And to have a guy, I gotta say, to have a guy like Terry, leading the way. How lucky have we been since, our last two athletic directors, Danny White and Terry Mohajir, and especially Terry with the experience that he has, like we talked about early in the interview, right, Eric? That mentality, like he just gets UCF. He gets the zeitgeist at this university. And to have a guy who's experienced not just as a student athlete, but who is also a coach is, it's but like I was telling him, you know, that's rare. It's becoming more rare these days. It used to be that the athletic director, like way back in the day, was also a head coach of one of the sports. But, you know, kind of like in high school, right? But now, you know, a lot of people go through the administrative channel, and that's not a knock on anybody, but I think it's really advantageous for Terry to have that institutional knowledge of having been a coach in addition to a student athlete himself to you know, empathize with the things that his fellow coaches are going through.
No doubt.
I would also point out that he also has the same sympathy for the student athletes as well. I was in one of my classes this semester. Actually, I was in class with a student athlete that I won't name, but I was talking to them after class during a break in class once, and he also sang Terry's praises, and he talked about how like everybody loves him. I mean, yeah, great.
That's Kyle. You look like you were going to say.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, all I would add to that too is even as the media schmo whatever decked out in his tie and shirt, he's always been super friendly to me personally too. I'm not even technically in the program, right?
Well, he's been busy. You're right. He's a busy guy. He's doing good, but I think he gets everything that's going on. And you, Kyle, and Jeff, you got to talk to Terry's first hire.
Second hire. How quickly we forget.
Second hire. Gus was number one.
Was number one, but yeah, and we're gonna get to that next. Yeah, his first post Gus Malzahn hire, and a big hire it was, and that's Sytia Messer coming over from LSU, previously from Baylor. New head basketball coach at UCF. She's assembling her roster and her assistant coaches, her coaching staff right now. As we speak, she gives us some insight onto that and insight into her background as a coach and her journey to UCF as well when we return. Stick around. This is the Black Gold Banneret Podcast, and we're back after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Busy show for us today. Joining us now, the new head women's basketball coach at UCF. We finally managed to catch up with her after she's been jetting all over the place, trying to fill out not just her roster, but her assistant coach stable as well. Sytia Messer joining us for the very first time on the show. Coach, welcome to UCF. How are you?
Hey, I am doing well, and thank you guys for having me. I am super excited to be here at UCF. What a great opportunity. So thank you.
Well, we're so thankful to have you here. We saw you I saw you at the press conference, and you know, I'm a student of the history of the game, and so I know the place that you have in Arkansas history and SEC basketball history. And I remember watching you during that Final Four, and to see you come here as a familiar name from some of the players that I've watched in the past, it's just really exciting to have you here. So let me ask you, prior to coming to UCF, and you've had an illustrious career in coaching in addition after playing, what was your evaluation of UCF as a basketball program prior to coming here? When you heard UCF, when you were at Georgia Tech and Baylor, and then when you were at Tennessee Tech before that as a head coach, when you heard UCF, what did you think?
I thought good program. I really did. I thought a good program. I was familiar with us being in Conference USA in the past and being competitive winning in Conference USA, regular season and tournament championships, and then going on to American and winning. So I thought really good basketball, very competitive conferences, and amazing place to live, Orlando. So you couldn't beat that. So I thought very highly always of UCF.
Yeah, we heard a lot about the closing of the deal involving the Mouse and Company over at Disney World. The warning I will issue, though, if you do play anybody in the south of the state, the traffic gets a little rough going through there. So that might be some of the downside. But sticking with Florida as a concept, something we had talked about a lot with Coach Abe was Florida is kind of a hotbed for women's basketball. Looking at it last year, I believe there were 6 participants, right? Gulf Coast, Miami, UCF, USF, Florida. Were you aware of Florida's presence on the map, having to, I guess, recruit against those institutions to some extent? And if you were, what was your impression then at that point?
Well, I definitely know that it was a hotbed. I actually spent a lot of time in Florida recruiting at other places. Signed a young lady named Beatrice Montpamir when I was at Baylor, who was an elite athlete. And so have a great relationships with different high school coaches in the state. So I agree, it's definitely a hotbed. I think the thing that we're so proud of, and I'm so proud to be part of UCF, when you think about last year, us beating Florida. I mean, we're the school in the state to beat right now. In my opinion, Florida State has been not as consistent as it has in the past. We beat Florida. I really think that, and what we've done with UCF, and I just think that we're the school. We're the school, and that's something I don't take lightly. And I know that there's some work to continue that standard. And that's part of the reason I chose UCF is I love competition.
Let me get this one quick real too, because you have that impression of Florida going in, and now we as people who follow UCF have a certain impression of the Big 12, but you've resided there for some time of late. In your mind, kind of tell us, like, if you can give us a bit of an identity of what Big 12 basketball looks like in the women's space, especially, what is the way you would describe that and what UCF is going into as a program entering that conference very soon?
Well, I think Big 12 basketball is one of the best conferences in the nation. I think in describing it, you think about this, you have Bill Finley, who's been at Iowa State forever, who's going to play everything from matchup zone to triangle, box and one. He's going to throw everything at you. The different styles of coaching is tremendous. To me, it's the best I've been around because you have vets that are there. And you have Vic Schaefer at Texas, who's going to play man-to-man full court and get up in you. You got Raven, who's going to throw some man and zone at TCU. So I think you have to prepare your players for different styles every night. The travel too. You're going from, Orlando to Ames, Iowa. The different temperatures, just a little bit different, And so just being prepared for that, that's all mental. And I think having been in those environments, it helps me prepare our team better, just from the mental standpoint. Ames, Iowa is one of the most hostile places you can play. They go at you, and that's okay. That's what it is. You want to be in an environment where women's basketball is taken serious, and I feel like it is in the Big 12. So those are the things we have to look forward to: different styles of play, different styles of, location, the travel, and we just have to. To me, it's an advantage as far as recruiting because you can hit the Texas, you can hit Iowa, you can hit Kansas, those kind of places. You can walk into a recruit home and say, hey, we'll bring you back home. And meanwhile, you can play with Mickey during the week.
Hearing you talk about your potential future conference mates, right? You mentioned, all you mentioned was defense, and your predecessor was not shy about this program having a defense first identity. But what is going to be the identity of UCF basketball under you?
Great question. From a defensive standpoint, man-to-man defense, and we're going to pressure the ball. We're going to generate offense from our defense because we're going to play man-to-man and get easy baskets that way and turnovers. From an offensive standpoint, we really want to go to positionless basketball. I want to recruit players that are not your typical 5 and just going to post up with her back to the basket. I want her to be able to face up, shoot the 3, hit transition baskets, those kind of things. So offensively, defense. Defensively, it's going to be man-to-man. Offensively, we're going to go positionless basketball.
That's a lot of similarities.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, for Coach Abe, it was 96 feet. For you, I've heard you use the phrase 40 minutes of hell. I don't think we're losing a whole lot of aggressiveness with this identity. I mean, that's where I'm going to go, man. So in my mind, we talked about a lot of the identity and kind of the winning expectation that's come. You're used to winning, I'm used to winning. Let's get it, I think was what you said at your initial press conference. So with that, I mean, these expectations are something you're expecting. Is there anything special with how you deal with that while also having to fill the stable of coaches, having to get new recruits? And oh, by the way, scheduling still a thing that has to be dealt with. Is that something that is helped to push you, or where does that come into play in your mind?
Well, I'm a competitive person. So I think I told you guys this, being the youngest of 8, you have to figure out how you're going to get a plate at the table. So competing I've never been shy of that. But listen, we have to take it one step at a time. The most important thing for me is the players that have chose to stay, me being able to establish the relationship with them and getting their confidence and knowing who I am. Going out, secondly, and recruiting. And because as well as we did last year, we had a lot of those people leave. And so it's like a new team. And so that's the thing. I've had to go out in the recruiting, and we were fortunate to sign 4 young ladies. Actually have 4 coming in this weekend as well. And so we're going to do that. And then I hired 2 assistants, and I'm in the process of hiring a 3rd one. And, then we're going to finish up the scheduling. It's just one step at a time. It can be overwhelming when you look at it, with everything that was left, not quite complete, finished, and on top of some players transferring. But that's part of this game. We roll up our sleeves, we don't make excuses, and we get it done.
Yeah,
it's a lot different now with how the portal is too. I mean, when we were talking about it, like the portal giveth and the portal taketh away, right? So do you see it as an advantage? Like, hey, I can fill out this roster real quick. I don't have anybody who's kind of playing out the string for me here. You know what I mean? Do you find it to be a little bit more, is having a blank slate like that a little bit of an advantage maybe?
Yeah, I think there's some positive to it. There's a positive to it because the kids that we are bringing in kind of know me versus me trying to convince players to get to know our staff and us. So that part is positive. And 2, there's no setting out. I mean, you can get them immediately. We plan on working our kids out, having everybody in settled 1st of June and working them out and, starting our season. And so that's definitely some positive. It really is. And being able to go in and kind of pick and choose, who you like and those kind of things. So it's been some positive.
You said some stuff there. Yeah, you said some stuff there, Coach, that kind of reminded me of a quote, which, by the way, thank you for this, because when my kids are a little older, I'm going to use this quote with them. But you had mentioned at your initial press conference, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. How much of that is enveloped? First of all, if you could tell us from where you got that, awesome. And how much of that is part of your recruiting identity?
Oh, so I got that from a high school coach who, as a matter of fact, was a legendary high school coach in the state of Florida. Her name was Coach Penders. She was just passed away last year, but the winningest coach in the state of Florida, women's basketball, Dillard High School. She was a great, great friend of mine.
Broward County.
Yes. Yep. I spent a lot of time with Coach Pender. And so she's the one that taught me that. She won 8 state titles. And I went back and I recruited a player of hers. Now, she coached this player's mom. And then now she's coaching the player. So this is generational, and she's at the same place. And I talked to her about, how do you get these people to buy into you constantly? And she said that quote to me. And so I really have taken that to heart. And it's true, even with me in my life, I want people to treat me the way I want to be treated, number one. But I think you gain trust by showing people you care. And that's why it was so important to me with the players who decided to stay, to spend my first couple of weeks, focusing on them and letting them know I'm here and trusting me as a person. And then, kind of transitioning and bringing people on after that.
By the way, it's Marcia Pinder at Dillard High School. And I can recall her because I grew up outside of Fort Lauderdale, and she is 996 wins in 44 years.
Wow.
At Dillard, 10 state titles. Wow, God rest her. She just passed away in about a year ago. Yeah. And she's a real legend. Let me ask you, you've had in your career, you've been successful as a head coach prior to coming here at UCF. This is not your first go around. You were a successful assistant, of course, at Georgia Tech and Baylor. But you had that long span of time under head coach Kim Mulkey, whose resume also speaks for herself, another legend in her own right. In between this go around at UCF and your previous head coaching job at Tennessee Tech, excuse me. What did you learn from your time with Coach Mulkey that you didn't know at Tennessee Tech that now you're taking yourself for and like, okay, now this second time around, I know this now, and I'm going to be a better head coach for it?
It's a lot, but I'll try to summarize it in 3 things.
We got time.
One thing is your staff, like the people you surround yourself with, is important, because you're going to be spending most of your time with those people, and try to, surround yourself with people that you trust. When I first took the job at Tennessee Tech, I took it in August. A couple weeks later, school was starting. So I was hiring really quickly, and not necessarily people I knew or could afford to hire on that budget. I'm being completely transparent with you guys. And so
that's a factor.
Yeah. And so, I knew then, okay, second time around, you need to be able to, your resources to be able to get what you vision your program to be. So the resources is very important. And with the people you surround yourself with. Basketball, prepare for every game, no matter if we're playing Grambling State or if we're playing UConn. Your preparation need to be the same. And the consistency of that with players, there's no days off. There's no days off. Our practices were twice as hard as the game at Baylor, because that was the fun time. Our practices, we were getting at it. And so, having learned that, your staff and your preparation, and I would say one of the last thing is, whatever you say, you do, you follow up on it. So no matter if you're gonna, whatever you tell a player or your staff member or anybody else, if it's big or small, you follow up on it. If you tell them you're gonna call them at 6 p.m. that night, 6 p.m., their phone should be ringing. So I would say it's little things like that are big things that in the end and in the big picture are things that I learned from Coach Mulkey.
The hardest thing here, and looking at it from the outside, is, you kind of touched upon this a little bit earlier, is just straight up numbers, right? Filling out this roster. Because I think you have 4 players returning from last year's roster. You just added 4 in the portal: Taylor Gibson, Rachel Ranke, Morgan Robinson Nuagu, and Maya Burns. You said you have 4 more that you're planning to bring in. And then I think that I was checking on social. And I see that I believe that there's still 2 recruits from last year. One was obviously went to Georgia. Another was released from her letter. So how many more spots do you have to fill? I know you said you want to get them in by June 1st. So how many more do you have left to fill?
I'm going to try to sign at least 4 more.
Okay.
And so I want to be able to go 5-on-5, of course, in practice, and then have 2 extra ones for injuries if anything happens. So I want to have at least 12 on the roster, and then leave 3 open for transfers. You know, you have mid-season and I mean those kind of transfers and things like that. So that's what I plan on doing, and we're getting after it. As I say, I have 2 staff members here, and we're doing it. So
those are going to be announced pretty soon, I'm guessing, too, right?
Yeah, I'll be more than happy to tell you guys who they are. You get exclusive. Come on.
All right. What do you got?
So Greg Brown, I hired.
Okay.
Greg used to be here.
Right. He was here under Coach Williams. That's right.
That's exactly right. So Greg is someone I've had my eyes on for a while. Again, going back to the things you learn. So like I told you, staff is very important. And I always watched and how he carried himself and those things. And so he was one of the first calls I made once I was blessed with this job. And then secondly, Tania Adams, she's the associate head coach at the University of Memphis. And so Tania, great basketball mind. Memphis had a great year. I mean, for them to turn that around as quickly as they did. The year before that, she was at Wright State with the same staff. And they actually beat Arkansas in the NCAA tournament in the first round. And so her ability to coach, and she actually played with me at Arkansas too. So small world. But our basketball circle we were never in the same basketball circle. We had different places and those kind of things. So we kind of went in our separate directions with our careers. And then, ended back up. Now she's working with me. So she will be an associate head coach and Greg will be his too. So I have 2 associate head coaches because I feel like those 2 have paid their dues. I'm excited about what they can bring to us in this program, their experience, their player development, their communication, their network, the people they have that they can pick up the phone and call. And so super excited about that. And then I am working to fill the last position. So that's where we are.
All right. Well, congrats to you on all the additions and especially with Tennille. I mean, we saw just observing from the sidelines, Tennille really was like a second head coach for Memphis. And of course, we were familiar with Greg from his time here with Coach Joy Williams, who I know that
Yeah.
Right. And did you talk with Joy when you were in the mix for the job? Did she give you, some of the background of UCF and everything?
Yeah. So I talked to Joy years ago about UCF, just like, we talked about how she loved the job and just the potential. And so I've always kind of talked to her about that. As far as I talked to her after I took the job, because I really believed in Terry. I believed in what I had seen. And so afterwards I called her and talked to her about UCF and also about Greg. And so, but she knew, she and I talked throughout the years since she's been gone. And so she knew that Greg was always someone on my list. And we've talked about UCF and she talked about her experience here, which I respect a lot of things that she spoke of.
2 conference titles here.
Yeah.
Those 2 banners up there in that roof that she's at least partially responsible for, along with her players. And I remember when she came in, she brought in, had to bring in, I think it was like 8 or 9 freshmen.
Yeah.
When she and brought that team to 2 conference championships. So let me ask you this too. There were reports that you were in the mix for the Baylor job when Coach Mulkey left.
Yes.
I did see an interview when you came to Louisiana where underneath that smile of yours, I could tell that you were like, I want to get those guys. And so the Big 12 factor, I think, had to have, was how big of a factor was that in coming to UCF, where, obviously you talked about how familiar we are with the conference itself, but like, listen, underneath that smile of yours, you're a competitor. I know you're a competitor. You can't wait to get after them.
Absolutely. It's funny, as I mentioned to you guys, it started at birth. I'm the youngest of 8, so competing. Yeah. And then too, you look at my resume as a player, Final Four, national championship, and then even as a head coach of the year in the OVC. So yes, competitiveness is definitely in my blood. But yeah, I'm excited. So part of the excitement of taking this job was going to the Big 12. A lot of familiar faces. And so, we just have to figure that out. And I'm excited to be able to go back and play against a lot of people that, I've known in the past and see what we can do to represent UCF.
What kind of investments would you like to see in your program now as we head toward that level? Because as good as the American is, like you said, Big 12 is a whole different animal.
Yeah. And that's what, as far as when you think about like my staff, the people I'm hiring Big 12 coaches, players that I'm recruiting. I know we're behind the 8 ball a little bit because of, just the timing of taking the job. However, my goal is to recruit Big 12 players that compete for championships. So that's what we are. That's what we're doing. And we know that it's going to be a quick turnaround. But, every decision we're making, we're thinking Big 12.
Kyle, last word to you, man.
Sure. Coach, you mentioned being behind the 8 ball and all the stuff you've had to do, come in, hair on your fire, make happen and kind of fix, for lacking a better word. What's something that was already present on campus? You were like, wow, thank goodness UCF's doing that. What's something when you got here that you were glad to see already happening?
That's a great question. It's a lot. Number one, I think just the UCF family and how welcome everybody made me feel. All the players, the coaching, the head coaches here. Gus stopped by my office, just, little things like that. That I really was like, thank God for this family environment. And just UCF itself was enough for me. I do like how everything to me is first class. You look at our campus is second to none. And so just UCF, I would say completely itself is one of the things I went, wow, thank God I'm going to be part of this. Yes.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny you say that because Kyle and I are both alumni and, we graduated in the mid 2000s. And one of the things I always loved about the school and why, I've in some strange way never really left is it is like it for a big campus. It's one of the biggest campuses in terms of enrollment in the country. It never felt that big.
Yeah.
It always felt like it always felt tight knit to me, and I think that you appreciate that especially because it brings that sense of community together, doesn't it?
It really does. It really does. I feel that closeness, that family environment. And as you say, people on the outside think, oh, it's huge. You don't get that feeling when you get here. You get that feeling of, a family environment that's competing for championships, that knows how to treat their student athletes like first class student athletes. I mean, that's been my experience so far. And I'm super excited to be a part of all of this.
Well, we're excited that you're a part of it too. And we're really thankful that you decided to come here and are bringing your experience, not just as a coach, but as a player too. And it's been a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun to see how, everything kind of fills out, and we're looking forward to seeing, more news. Thanks for breaking the news too about your assistant coaches. That was huge. We appreciate that. And
anytime you guys can get it here first.
Are we going to see you at the Charge On tour in a couple of weeks?
Yes, I will be there. I think we have one on the 24th and 26th, or
24th in Port Canaveral and the 26th in Oviedo, which is right up here. I actually live in Oviedo, so I'll be stopping.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to coming. Yeah, I will be there.
All right. Looking forward to seeing you. Let's careful traveling. I know you're going to be still chalking up a lot of frequent flyer miles getting out there, but thank you, head coach Sytia.
The family members are going to take that,
Oh, they are? Okay.
Nephews. I mean, they've already Disney World, and I'll just fly down.
I know. Hey, you know what else? We got to get you some stuff for your office here because the shelves are looking a little empty.
Hey, it's so funny. So Memorial Day weekend, I am going to Baton Rouge to pack up. Okay. So I got my stuff. I'm still living in two places, but we'll get that. We'll get it rolling. Thank God you can see me. It's just auto. So.
All right. Well, listen. If you need anything to fill it out for future Zoom backgrounds, just let me know. We'll send you some stuff. Okay. I got you. All right. Head coach Sytia Messer, thank you so much. Once again, welcome to UCF. Safe travels out there on the recruiting trail. And hey, we're looking forward to seeing the new era here in this program as we head not just towards our last couple seasons in the American, but into the Big 12, which, of course, as you said many times, you are even more excited about than we are. And of course, we're really excited about that. Coach, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Look forward to doing this again soon.
All right. Thanks to Coach Messer. Thanks to Megan Herboth for helping us set this thing up. Kyle, my favorite part of listening to Coach Messer was when she talked about the identity of this team. She said that it would emphasize defense, obviously, which is something that we're used to, and that excites me because we've seen what good defense looks like here at UCF. But what I thought was interesting and different from her predecessor, and I think a lot of fans want to know about this, she talked about positionless basketball on offense. Now, under Coach Abe, I felt like it was a little bit more structured offensively, like the bigs were in the post. She had people on the outside, but the game was centered offensively from the inside out. Coach Messer, it feels to me like this is going to be a little bit more freewheeling. Maybe we'll get out on the break a little bit more often, those kinds of things. And that excites me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And let's be clear, like this isn't to say that Coach Abe and company, with their 96 feet, playing 96 feet concept didn't take care of the break. It was defense setting up points, which is exactly what Coach Messer even cited. But her approach, calling it 40 minutes of hell instead, is the only thing that's different defensively. I think that's doctrine in the state of Arkansas, is it not? 40 minutes of hell. That's the way she described it when she was talking to Daniels. I'll put it that way. But here's what it is. For me, what I more kind of hear is it's not so much. I mean, listen, finding somebody the appropriate size that can hit on the outside is great if you can find them at any level, in any aspect of basketball, men's, women's, high school, college, NBA, WNBA, whatever. And I think, listen, if you find for lack of a better description, you find a Dirk that can do it like that and be super tall and then chuck it from the cheap seats, but actually be physical more than Nowitzki was in his day. That's awesome. But she did mention an emphasis on versatility, which I think takes the one weak point I think you could get from last year's team, that tentativeness to shoot at times. And if you're bringing in players with that versatility in mind, as Coach Messer's talking about it, that's what I think you're going to get. Some definitely a lot more offense. I like you talking about pushing the tempo. And listen, expect them to chuck 10 threes or more, rather than not being surprised that they're going 10 or lower because the post is working and they're pounding it, right?
Yeah. So she's got 4 more roster spots yet to fill. And she filled out her assistant coaching staff as well, as she talked to us. And actually there was a little bit more news that we wanted to, that dropped on Wednesday about this, and that she filled out, and Bryson, you can check me on this. She filled out her 3rd assistant coach spot. Is that right? Obviously we talked about Greg Brown, Tennille Adams, but also Ashley DeBow is also joining the staff.
Yes, she says that that it's, when I read the press release, it said that she was going to be an executive member of the staff. She's just coming off of being the director of basketball operations at Syracuse, so I would imagine it's that sort of role perhaps that she's going to fill there. But she's worked with Messer for 4 years at Baylor, so it's not like they're strangers to each other. So they really
Syracuse. All right, here we go. It is.
They get what each other was going for. But yes, she was at Syracuse last season. So yeah, I think it's that these first three hires, though, are very good from a general perspective. Tennille Adams, they are reunited with each other back from their playing days at Arkansas, which is awesome. I think that honestly, I think that's really cool that Messer now as a head coach, he's able to bring one of her former teammates with her. That's great for chemistry purposes. You have Greg Brown, who already knows this program. He was an associate head coach under Joy Williams, so he knows the area and he has some great experience. He was also an assistant in the SEC last season with Texas A&M. So great job bringing him back. And then, of course, DeBow, she has her experiences with Messer at Baylor. So we have the one person that knows the area well, and then two people that know Messer really well. And I think these are some really good first hires for a staff.
Last little bit, Kyle. I was really she seemed really happy with the transfers that she brought in, the four players that she brought in, who she hinted at that she knew them from before in various different. Basketball is kind of like, everybody knows somebody who knows somebody, right? Obviously through recruiting or maybe playing somewhere else. But, that's what we talked about before. Like the portal giveth and the portal taketh away. Well, the portal is givething now.
Yes. Lord knows we've had the taketh away part previous to this. And I would imagine, Coach Messer kind of walking in like Will Smith in the finale of Fresh Prince there at first, just coming in on an empty gym instead of an apartment. But yeah, she's filling things out nicely. And I'm very interested, obviously, the identity and all that of the team and what they're going to look like we're going to see more of that and hear more about that once practices start to take place over the summer here. But, one thing I found very unique talking to Coach Messer versus Coach Abe, and this isn't any spot on Coach Abe. Sure, she never used my first name like she did Eric's, but you're still salty about that. I'm not salty. I'm hurt, but I say all the above to say I learned a lot from Coach Abe. But it's funny, with all the similarities we're talking about, they approach the game still very different, and I'm looking forward to learning a lot from Coach Messer as well. And just from talking to her, not to say that Coach Abe couldn't recruit, but you can tell Sytia Messer is a recruiting body. She looks like she is bringing a vision, and I don't want to say sale because that kind of cheapens it, but she brings something out that I can tell is going to reach potential athletes.
We talked about this a little bit before, and before we go to a break, I wanted to talk about this. I think as you and Eric, I think you can jump in on this too from your experience. I think as you get to a certain point in the hierarchy of college sports, it becomes less about the X's and O's, right, and how you can beat a team beat an opponent with strategy, and more about just the raw talent you can accumulate. And that's where recruiting really, it really starts to show up. We hear about recruiting all the time from, so-called Power 5 institutions all the time. It's recruiting. And I think the reason why that is if you have players of a certain talent level, it doesn't matter what system you run. They are talented enough to run it and win, regardless of how you want to run. So then it just becomes a question of, against that competition, how good are the players that you're bringing in? Is that, as UCF moves to the Big 12, particularly in women's basketball, not just in women's basketball, all sports, but from this
talented
perspective,
players make coaches and schemes work. That's not really complicated.
Well, thanks for explaining everything that I just said in as few words as possible, Eric. What would I ever do without you? Go ahead, Kyle.
Hey, listen, he's thinking about the fact that we're trying to move the show along, and I respect it. But something you got to miss too. Listen, if you got every talented player you went for, there would be no challenge to recruiting, right? So what you got to start doing, all the talent and all the X's and O's is the stuff that's done at night, watching video, scouting kids, doing things like that. Recruiting is the closing of it all, right? And I think you and I talked about this separately too. Where the real winning in recruiting happens isn't just the stars, but also the role players as well. At the end of the day, somebody who's really good playing in your system has been told that they're not X enough to play in a different system. And you could get somebody that could come in and make that difference, right? Somebody told Jay Flash, for example, before he came here, that he wasn't good enough receiver to be in the SEC, and he did what he did with us. And now someone else has told him, hey, you don't really fit in Gus's system. You'd be so much better over here. So if you're going to land players that complement a nucleus or can add things in or can become part of a nucleus because it's something you like to do, especially if they've heard you don't have enough X to do this, paired with Sytia Messer's not just her smile, but the whole concept that she is bringing relationship and not to use the cliche family, but actually meaning it when she walks in the room. That's how you turn a kid to your side.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think, I think it's so hard to do what is being asked. It's so hard to follow up on success. But if somebody can do it and vault UCF forward from where it was in women's basketball, as the program moves into the Big 12, Sytia can. She has the experience to do it. She has the know-how to do it. Mm-hmm. And I tell you, it's going to be. I'm really excited about what we have coming up in store. She's going to fill out the roster here in the next couple weeks. I think she said, what was it, Kyle? By June 1st, she plans to have everything in?
Yeah, by June 1st, and she said she wanted to fill 4 more spots. And listen, following an iconic year is always tough, let alone when you're on the block doing so, right?
So it's going to be great. So thanks again to Coach Messer. Looking forward to seeing what she has in store for us in the next couple weeks, months, and years here at UCF. And again, thanks to Megan for setting everything up for us too. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about some softball. Eric Lopez is going to be here to talk a little bit more about UCF clinching the American Athletic Conference's regular season title. We're going to talk a little bit about baseball and some other news coming in. One transfer for men's basketball, and lots more to talk about when we return. It's the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast, and we're back after this. Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, Bryson Turner with you here as we take you around the world of UCF sports. And Eric Lopez, your UCF Knights softball team is bringing home a championship. They won 2 out of 3 at Wichita State this past weekend in a matchup of the 2 best teams in the American. Looked a little bleak there after that first game, but they figured out the next 2 games. And on Sunday, they win the conference or clinch the conference regular season title with a victory over Wichita to finish out the regular season. Now, here's why this is significant. 2 reasons. Number one, obviously you get to take home a trophy and you get rings for winning a conference regular season championship. Oh, yeah. That's great. Number 2, you get a bye in the first round of the conference tournament at ECU. There's 7 teams that play softball in the American. The 1 seed gets the bye. Why that's significant, Eric, and you can elaborate on this further, is twofold. Number 1, you only have to win 2 games to win the championship, where everyone else has to win 3. Number 2, if all goes well, you end up, it won't hurt your RPI quite as much because you won't have an 8 seed team added to your schedule that could hurt. So as you look at the RPI, Eric, and UCF right now is very much on the borderline. We talked about this with Terry Mohajir earlier. Is very much on the line in terms of can they host, will they host? it was big for them to get to win this conference regular season championship. Like it was a really significant thing.
Well, yeah, it's big. First of all, you win a conference championship's big. You get rings. I think that's the most important part of it. As far as the tournament, yes, they get the bye. You don't play Memphis, who hurts your schedule strength. You don't have to play 3 games. You don't have to face Georgina Korick, the best pitcher in the sport, who won her 4th American Conference Pitcher of the Year on Wednesday, until perhaps the final. In fact, Wichita State USF have to go through each other, so that's a positive. So now UCF will wait till Friday to play in the semis against either Houston or Tulsa. If they would probably, from a schedule strength standpoint, you prefer Houston. Houston, though, it's a big problem. They tripped up UCF in Houston in the last time they played. So that could be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge either way. But, yeah, the path is a little shorter, 2 games instead of 3. And we'll see what happens. They want to do the double dip. They want to do what the 2015 UCF team was able to do, and that's win the regular season and the tournament title double whammy. Weather is a factor in Greenville. They have already moved up the games on Thursday to 9 a.m. and noon Eastern. The weather ain't looking great on Friday, so it would not surprise me if they move up the games on Friday. Ironically enough, the weather's great here in Orlando this week. I mean, we could have played
Beautiful
here.
Week in town, isn't it?
Just saying.
Man, it's a shame.
Didn't have to move tournaments around, but look, it was big. I mean, to beat Wichita State on the road 2 out of 3 after dropping the first game, where you lose a 4-0 lead. The umpires pretty much decided to stop calling strikes on Gianna Mancha. So in the first game, because
we can't go an episode without Eric hitting up the umpire.
I mean, look, I don't think the umpire crew would be a good crew for like a high school game in Wichita, not necessarily Division I game. But anyway, we don't have to go back.
Don't get us canceled.
But anyway.
Someone get the burner.
Get the hook. Get the hook.
But UCF bounced back on the Saturday with Kamal Woodall, who I've called now the Mike Hughes of softball. Mike Hughes made the big impact with football. Without him, they don't win. They don't go undefeated. They don't do what they did in 2017. It's the same as applied here to Kamal Woodall. They don't win the conference title. They're not in this position where they're at without her and her performance this year. She was magnificent on Saturday. And then Sunday, the Bats woke up. Justine Molina with a 3-run homer. They scored 5 in the 6th, and they beat a good Wichita State team and still keep themselves in position to host. It was a memorable weekend, and I had a chance to catch up with Coach Ball-Malone, who's on Wednesday in Greenville, to talk about that experience. We haven't had a chance to talk to you, obviously, since the weekend at Wichita State, historic weekend, winning the regular season title against a good Wichita in a tough place, winning the last 2 games. I know you've had comments about it on the recap. But now that you've had a couple of days to kind of reflect on it, what comes to your mind of that weekend that certainly will be remembered for a long time with this member of Team 21?
Yeah, we've talked about how this group is a calm group. I mean, we make some mistakes, but we're resilient. We bounce back, and we have a calmness to us. Not so much me, but definitely the team and our seniors. And I would even say maybe Coach Tyler. I think that's where it stems from most likely. But, you kind of got to see all parts of us as a group that weekend. That first game, we're rocking and rolling, and then all of a sudden it's like, what happened? And I think we just kind of looked around and, oh, wait, they had a great crowd there. They had people chanting like crazy every play they made, and every hit that they had or any ball that they put in play. And so, I mean, I guess that kind of got to us, along with our crazy travel situation that occurred. And, at the end of the day, like I was kind of upset after that game, but then I thought, we're going to keep our heads high. We're going to go about it the same way. They have their little cheer. I said, you better raise the roof again. And we're going to get back at it. And, you've seen teams time again that might lose the first game in a series and then go figure it out. And that's exactly what we did. And, following Kama with that performance that she had on Saturday, I mean, that really like spark plugged the whole thing. And then, we just kind of follow along, to be able to be in that position and rest Gianna for a whole day. And she was kind of battling some things. And she stuck out 4 or 5 innings the next day on Sunday. And I mean, both Kama and Gianna are just they're, I guess courageous is the best word for it. They're confident, they're composed, and they rely on each other. And it's just so awesome to see them lead and our team follow. But the crowd, like you said, the crowd was, intimidating as heck. I didn't expect it to be that big. And it's hard to play there. It's hard to beat them. They're a good team. They hit the ball a ton, and that park definitely bodes well for them in that manner. But, our pitchers did a good job of keeping us in the game, and we scored more runs than they did. So and then ending it with a double play like we did. I mean, can't ask for more.
And it really felt like a regional, right? Sadie, with the crowd, it was the biggest crowd they've ever had, packed. I mean, every play, so much significance. I mean, that's got to help you too down the road, not only this week with the conference tournament, but beyond that.
Yeah, it's funny. And this is where I'm blessed as a coach, Elo. Shannon Doherty came up to me and she said, we probably need to talk to the freshmen about the conference tournament and regionals and, what that's going to be like. And, having the interviews and whatnot. And I said, well, I think that we've already gone through it. We were at St. Pete. I mean, that was like the World Series. And we've played in these big time moments. We were at Florida with a packed house. We were at our place in Georgia, the very first game with a packed house. And so you really sit back and you're like, wow, those moments can be a little overwhelming, but how blessed are we that we've had that experience? And again, we have so many youngsters that have experienced so much in, what is it, not even 3 months now. So it's cool. And then you've got, a player like Shannon Doherty, like thinking about, okay, how can we get in front of these things? And you're like, well, okay, I'm here too. What do I need to do as the head coach? I got to think of some things too. They definitely keep me on my toes.
Yeah, on the toes. What went through your mind when those last outs was recorded on that ground ball and you just realized you won the series, you won the title?
Yeah, well, I just kept telling them get outs because normally I'm definitely pitcher minded. I don't like people to score. I don't like people to get to second. I especially do not like people to get to third. Like we practice lots of things where in practice, if they get to third, that we actually put a run up on the scoreboard. I do not like people getting to third base, especially with our pitching staff. And so when those two runners did get on, I just felt really confident in us. You keep McKinney in the park. Awesome. You got Barnard to ground out. Awesome. Like, yeah, it may not feel like it. We've got two runners on, but I think, we're in a win-win situation here. And Kama did a great job of keeping the ball down and rolling the ground ball at one of the easiest parts. You got one tag and one throw. And so it all panned out for us. I mean, that was what the plan was, and it worked that time. So, but we've been there time and time again with the amount of games that we played, the amount of opponents that we played, the type of opponents we played. Kama's been in those situations before. And so, I love that she's had that experience and able to do her thing.
Yeah, it was kind of deja vu for you. Gianna getting the ball, getting the win 4 years ago. She got the ball and got the win when you clinched the Mountain West Championship, both of you together at Boise State. Justine was a part of that. Of course, she hits a memorable 3-run homer in that Sunday that'll go down in UCF history. That has to be, I mean, it's kind of wild, kind of full circle with all of you there.
Yeah. We definitely talked about it before the game, and I handed her the ball and I said, I said something like, well, we've been here before, haven't we? And she just gives me the little smirk and smile and kind of the, oh gosh, Coach Bear, the mom just don't say anything to embarrass me type of thing. But yeah, it's very cool to be able to experience that with both of them and with the entire team, but pretty special when, I had recruited them a long time ago when they were very young, and I knew they had what it took. Like they just, not only on the field, but, in the classroom, in the weight room, in the community, they're leaders. They lead very differently, both of them, from each other, but, they definitely cover all bases. And so to be able to experience that with them is, I don't know how many get to do it. And again, just blessed is all I can say.
Now, obviously, you're in Greenville getting set for the conference championship. You're the one, so you get a bye. So you don't play till Friday. You play the winner of Tulsa and Houston. So take us through that process where you got to wait to play till Friday while everybody else in the league is going to play on Thursday. That's a good problem to have, but still, take us through the process of preparing to try to win another conference championship here.
Right. Well, we haven't been in this situation since I've been here, but it's an awesome situation. I think Gianna said it best in one of her interviews with you guys. She said, we want to win this whole thing. We want to play 2 games and win that too, and win the regional and get to a super regional. And, we're staying in the moment with a forward vision for sure. But I mean, it's exactly what Gianna said. It's exactly what the team has been preaching. I know that, we're going to get another practice in tomorrow. They did a good job today, real quick, competitive practice today. And I know they have their eyes set on going to see the new Doctor Strange movie.
Okay. Yeah.
What they're trying to, I told them I'm away from my 3 boys. Like, let me get away from Marvel. Can we watch like The Notebook or something? But, but of course they said that it's definitely something that all parties can watch. And so I got to jump on that wagon, I guess, to be along with the team. But yeah, they're just being themselves. Got their little pool workout in. We're going to go watch the game. I believe got moved to 9 a.m. tomorrow. So we're going to go watch that. And they're excited about that because last year there were kind of some restrictions with COVID of teams being able to come and watch the games. And so they're excited that they get to do that. And I just remember, a long time ago being in their shoes and just loving being like witnessing the experience and watching teams and scouting myself. And so I'm glad that they get to do that and they get to enjoy it and, be around it more than we were. So yes, last year. So
it's going to be exciting. Obviously conference championship. What's the key to being successful this week? What's the key?
Just doing our thing, our pitchers staying healthy. I'll say we walked more people last weekend than I would have liked to, but again, that also goes with, you might like pick your poison on who you want, who you want to face and that kind of stuff in a lineup. But getting ahead of batters, playing routine defense, and then offensively, we've seen every pitcher, there's no surprise. Now it's just a matter of making adjustments before the game starts and knowing, what those pitchers' strengths are and just working towards ours. I think we've had even more opportunities to score more runs, even in that last game against Wichita State, we're popping up some bunts, maybe running into a few outs, just things that were good. And so we've been able to overcome it, but I'd like to see us clean that up and then just doing our thing. That I think they checked one box off with the regular season championship, but they're not satisfied. They're very proud and excited, but they're not satisfied and they want more. So yeah, there lots of rest, lots of snacks and eating, and maybe a little Doctor Strange, I guess.
I've heard good reviews of that movie. I know people
that
went to see it this week. So, but we wish you very good luck. I know you're trying to join the 2015 UCF team. Is the other UCF team to have done the daily double, winning the regular season and the tournament title. There's been comparisons with the 2 teams. So we hope that those continue. But in the meantime, good luck this week, Coach. And thanks for taking the time from a busy schedule.
Thank you, Elo. And we appreciate everything you're doing. I know this team has done some great things, but you put on a good show for us and really recognize them well. So, and represent them well. So I thank you for that.
All right. That was Coach Ball-Malone from Greenville. It's getting set for the American Conference Championship. You can check out the full interview on our YouTube channel, Black Gold Banneret. But so look, great weekend. Obviously the awards came out on Wednesday. Quick on that. Michaela Macario, the shortstop, wins the Freshman of the Year, Rookie of the Year, they call it in the American, whatever. Coach Ball-Malone, the Coach of the Year, Staff of the Year, winning for the American as well. So that was huge. Justine Molina, rightfully so. Justine Molina won Defensive Player of the Year in the American, rightfully so. 5 first-teamers all conference, led by Jada Cody, of course, who's had the monster year. Ashley, great. They had other players in there. Molina was a first teamer. Kennedy Searcy is a great story. First teamer. Gianna Mancha, first teamer. Denali Shoppacher, first teamer. Kmart Woodall was second team with Ashley Griffin and on the second team as well. So, and Macario was on the second team. So, strong, talented year, fun year. But now, like I said, you got the conference tournament. You're trying to do the daily double. They're excited. You heard Coach Ball-Malone say that. And obviously, the big question is if they, what is that enough to host? And the answer is it depends what happens elsewhere. I don't believe UCF has the control, but all you can do is control what you can control, as they say, and that's win the tournament, and then you hope things work your way.
So, Eric, I have a question. I was looking at these awards, and I was just intrigued because I noticed that Jada Cody and Kennedy Searcy both unanimously selected to the first team, by the way, rightfully so, that Jada was put as the catcher on that first team and Kennedy Searcy at third base. Now, I know that Jada has seen time at different positions. Of course, Searcy has been DP a good bunch. So do you have any insight on why they were selected to those positions specifically?
Well, if you think about it, Gianna Mancha was first team all-conference pitcher. Who caught Gianna? It's Jada. So it's a combination there. Jada, by the way, joins Cassidy Brewer and Natalie Land among UCF players that have been first team all-conference at different positions. And Kennedy kind of played the majority at third base down the stretch. So both very worthy. Great story, too, with Kennedy. Remember, she injured her ACL last year in Greenville in the regular season. UCF was never the same. And now she wins. She's an all-first-team conference as she returns to Greenville. So that's kind of the story with the conference awards. Obviously, Georgina Korick wins Pitcher of the Year, fourth straight year for her, well-earned. And Addison Barnhart from Wichita State wins now Player of the Year. So,
and real quick, I wanted to recap the first teamers too. Gianna Mancha as a pitcher, Jada Cody as a catcher, Justine Molina at second, Kennedy Searcy at third, Denali Shoppacher as an outfielder. And then on the second team, Kmart Woodall as a pitcher, Michaela Macario as an infielder, and Ashley Griffin as a designated player / utility / non-position player. And Ashley also made the all-rookie team as a catcher / designated player as well, along with Michaela Macario. So a star-studded year for UCF. My question to you now, Eric Lopez, is what's the ideal situation? What do we have to watch now to try and to see if UCF can get its best opportunity to host? Obviously, in the perspective of the American tournament, I'm thinking you want to play Houston in the second round because their RPI is 75 and they're playing Tulsa, whose RPI is 110. So you don't want to lose any ground there, right? So there's that. And then you want to play, and then it kind of doesn't matter if you play Wichita State or South Florida in terms of RPI, right?
They're both equally tough. They're both
both tough. And I think they're
both
they're
in
not
the top
quite
40.
back to back, but they're both top 40. So so you want to beat Houston, ideally, beat either Wichita or South Florida, and then what?
Well, you need some help elsewhere. First, now they got some on Wednesday. LSU was eliminated in the SEC tournament in Gainesville, losing to Mississippi State in 9 innings. That should take them out of consideration for hosting. Florida, who's the host of the SEC tournament, defeated Texas A&M. They will take on Kentucky in the next round. I spoke to Tim Walton after that game, prior to us recording here. They expect to host, and they should. They probably will host after that win. They have hosted every year since like 2004. Like he's never not hosted. So I don't think you can depend on Florida to come back to you. So now you might as well root for them to knock off Kentucky, because Kentucky could be a threat to host if they make a deep run in the SEC tournament. Same thing applies to Missouri. So I would root against those two teams if I'm UCF, to get knocked out as quickly as possible. Then the biggest threat of them all is in the ACC tournament, in my opinion, Notre Dame. And this is deja vu for longtime Knight fans, because in 2015, UCF thought we were going to host after winning the back-to-back conference titles. And on Selection Sunday, everybody was surprised to see Notre Dame's name pop up as a host. Well, guess what? Deja vu. Notre Dame is an 18 in the RPI. They play Clemson in the quarterfinals. UCF needs Clemson to win that game in the worst way. You want to knock Notre Dame out. If Notre Dame beats Clemson and then, let's say, upsets Virginia Tech, they're going to probably end up hosting, and it could be at the expense of UCF. So I don't even think it's much about what UCF can do on the field. Yes, you want to win the tournament. Definitely avoid the Friday loss if you can. But you also need help elsewhere, and that's just the way the system is. And the concern, obviously Washington is going to play Arizona State at home if they get swept, but Washington's a big brand. I don't see them getting passed over by UCF. And then Texas is the wild card in all this. I maintain UCF has got the better resume than Texas. They beat Texas head-to-head. But Texas has the win against Oklahoma. They're the only team in the country to beat Oklahoma. How much does the committee give them credit for that? That will decide Texas's fate. Texas will play Texas Tech, who has an interim head coach and an interim assistant coach by the name of Brandy Stewart, which should be a name familiar to you. Yeah, Brandy Stewart is an interim assistant right now for Texas Tech because they fired their head coach about a week or two ago. And so she's going to be the assistant. And if you're UCF, you're probably rooting for Brandy Stewart and Texas Tech to upset Texas, to knock them off the peg in case, maybe they're the team that gets plucked if somebody like a Notre Dame or an SEC team makes a run. So
I'm rooting for Brandy Stewart anyway.
Just
former UCF Texas administrator. So.
Just win against Texas. Because if Texas makes it to the Big 12 final, they're going to host. I mean, the problem that UCF has is geography. Nobody can bus here except Florida, and Florida's going to host. Whereas teams like Kentucky and Missouri and Texas, they could all have teams that host and bus. They can bus. And that's what's that to me, if UCF does not end up hosting, it will probably be in part because of geography and a team that can bus, which has nothing to do with on the field. And will probably, if they don't host, will be sent to Gainesville, Florida to play the Florida Gators in the Gainesville Regional. That's kind of how it works. I can tell you some positive news. As I spoke to Sandy Atkins, the committee chairperson, the committee has put a recommendation to the NCAA to seed the top 32 teams, not just top 16. See, they don't seed.
Interesting.
And by doing that, that will eliminate some of this predictability stuff. So in other words, in theory, if they put this in, and they expect this to pass in the next year or so, if that happens, let's say UCF is seeded 17, well, they wouldn't be going to Florida necessarily. They would go to the 16th seed, whoever that is. And let's say it's Texas. UCF would just go to Texas. So that is, believe it's expected to pass. A lot of the coaches and committee chair people have sent that. And usually when they recommend something to the NCAA, it gets passed. They've given the option of seeding the top 32, the top 48. You pick from that. My guess is they'll pick the top 32, and I think we'll see that within the next year or two in softball.
The scoreboard watching Notre Dame, Clemson scheduled for Thursday, 1:30 p.m. if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Eric?
Yep. Just root for Clemson.
Root for Clemson. And it should be noted when those two teams, Notre Dame and Clemson, played earlier this season, Clemson beat Notre Dame twice.
Yep.
In Clemson, South Carolina. So,
do it again.
So we need one more. Come on, Tigers.
So that's the scenarios. Those are the scenarios. We'll find out Sunday night, 7 Eastern, on their selection show on the Deuce. Myself and Bryson will be there at the UCF watch party. And Bryson, I know we've got another. You got a feature that's going to be out here on Banneret, if not already by the time this comes out on UCF. One of the players not mentioned in the all-conference, but just super important on this team's success this year.
Oh, yes, for sure. I will probably die on the hill that it is highway robbery that Shannon Doherty, the walk-off queen, is not on a conference team. Like, they put her on second team. She doesn't have to be on first team. Like she is one of the big reasons that UCF is even in this position to host in the first place, because she got those walk-off hits against Georgia in the very first game of the season, Eric, Ole Miss, and then Virginia Tech. Those wins really build your national reputation and to get you in this position to possibly host in the first place. So we got the chance to talk to Shannon. The video is up there, is up on the Black and Gold Banneret YouTube channel right now, and will also be linked in the article in full. You'll also be able to relive the Shannon Doherty walk-offs. I linked all three of them throughout the story, and you'll be able to learn how Shannon Doherty became the walk-off queen that she is. And I was very excited to have gotten that done. Considering I had to write it right around the time finals was going on. It was a bit stressful, but it was a very rewarding thing to write, and I'm excited for everyone to read it.
Awesome. Good. And good work again. Once again, Bryson, it's fantastic stuff. All right. Now, you continue to be busy with UCF baseball. It wasn't a very good weekend for the baseball team as they went to Tampa for that second rivalry series with South Florida, lost 2 out of 3. And then earlier today, they fell at Miami, put 10 runs on the board and lost 16-10 in midweek at number 6 Miami, which is obviously a bummer. But let's look at the big picture here right now. All right, so let's throw out the RPI right now. UCF baseball right now is 28-20 and 11-7 in the American. As we look at the standings, and we're heading into the home stretch here for baseball, they have just 7 games left on the schedule. 3 at Houston this coming weekend, home for midweek against Bethune-Cookman, and then home for senior weekend, 3 games against Cincinnati. As far as baseball is concerned right now, they are still hanging on to hopes for the regular season crown, but really that doesn't matter, Bryson, I don't think. I think right now what matters is getting themselves healthy for the conference tournament. ECU's at 14-4, leading the conference, 2 games ahead of Houston. UCF can leapfrog ahead of Houston if they have a good weekend this weekend at the Cougars. It's going to be tough because the Knights are 11-7, 1 game back of Houston for second. Tulane, who UCF won their series with earlier this year, is 1 game back of UCF, and Cincinnati is 2 games back of UCF. So this is a logjam in the top 5 of this conference right now. And these teams are jockeying for position for the American Conference tournament. Don't forget, it's 2 pods of 4, 1, 4, 5, and 8 in one pod, 1 double elimination pod, and then 2, 3, 6, 7 in the other double elimination pod. And then the winners of those pods play in a winner-take-all championship. So what's the plan right now? What is it right now that you think is kind of holding UCF back a little bit that went off the rails a little bit this weekend in Tampa?
Well, I think it has to do with the pitching. It's so ironic because this pitching was this team's strength in the beginning of the season with a healthy Connor Stain and Hunter Patterson. And before the season started, we were going to return, key, talented relievers like Nick Vieira and Zach Bennett.
Yep. Injuries. You said it too. It's flipped. It's completely flipped, hasn't it?
Injuries have wiped or hindered all of them. Stain is now out again. So I was out again this weekend. So I don't know if they're just really trying to keep him healthy for conference, or if the injuries are legit flaring up with him. Not really sure, but hopefully he will be healthy for the conference tournament because this team needs it. The good news, though, is that it looks like we could potentially have a starting pitcher that has emerged late, a la Hunter Patterson last season, in Ben Vespi. Ben Vespi actually had in UCF's lone win of the War on I-4 series, had another career game going 6 innings, allowing 3 hits, just 1 run, struck out a career high 8 batters. Vespi has now put together 2 straight quality starts now. And if you're a UCF pitching staff that has dealt with injuries and with Stain being as hindered as he is, having a guy like Vespi do that is absolutely paramount. And so if Vespi can keep this together, then that is definitely going to be something they can be able to take advantage of in the conference tournament. But the other thing is the inconsistent bullpen play. Here's the stats from the Miami game that actually proves my point exactly, because the pitchers pretty much pitched an inning at a time for mostly in that game. William Saxton, 3 hits, allowed 5 runs. Ruddy Gomez allowed 1 hit, ended up with 2 walks, ended up allowing 3 runs. Jacob Marlowe, 2 innings, 5 hits, 3 runs. Now, Hunsaker, Castellano, Balzer, and Litchfield all had either 0 or 1 hit allowed, and then Cy Cox went out and allowed 5 hits and 4 runs. It's these and the thing is that those stats could completely flip depending on the series you're in, because William Saxon has had his good games. Cy Cox has had his good appearances. Zach Hunsaker's had his bad appearances. So the problem is we can't really put a pin on this, on which player is going to show up when Lovelady calls them out of the bullpen. Ideally, you would want to have the best version of every player come out, but we just haven't really been able to see that consistently with this team. Now, the good news is that the offense has been a lot better. And I think that outrunning these teams is going to be something that's important, because UCF put up 10 runs against number 6 ranked Miami. That's not nothing. And I think it's this offense that's going to have to step up in order to keep the in order to make sure any errors the pitching staff make isn't going to hurt. The problem is that didn't happen in games 2 and 3 against South Florida. They were very, very close, very low scoring, very close games. So the pitching actually was fairly okay in those games, which was good. But the problem is that the offense didn't step up. So it seems that the offense and the defense just can't seem to get the stars to align enough times in order to get the win. And they're going to need that in the conference tournament. So, I mean, hey, we saw them make a run to the championship last season. It looks like we could have to, in order to see history repeat itself, in order for the Knights to find success and hopefully reach the postseason.
Yeah, and I'm glad you shouted out Ben Vespi there, because actually his last three games all starts. He's been really solid. He's given up only 7 hits total in 17 and a third, 3 earned runs, and struck out 20 over the course of that stretch. So he's been solid. And UCF is going to have to rely on him as they finish out the regular season and get ready to head to Clearwater. Let's skip over to women's golf at the Ann Arbor Regional. UCF finishes as a team 57 over par, 11th place. So that ends their season. They had to finish in the top 5 in order to advance to the NCAA championships. Top 4. Yeah. Thank you, Bryson. Zoe Alau was the top Knight at +8 for the tournament. That she finished in 18th place. Jess Baker finished in 26th. Pat Pidden finished in 29th. So the season comes to an end for UCF, but another successful postseason for head coach Emily Marin.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, making it to the postseason, I think, is definitely a victory for the program where it is right now. Tenrata Pidden coming in when I did the math, Tenrata Pidden was in position to actually break the season low scoring average record. I did some calculations myself, and if my calculations are right, I believe she broke it by about 0.2 strokes, but that's just my math. So. So still a very well done season from Tenrata Pidden. It just seems like it wasn't her weekend this weekend, where she ended up finishing at 12 over and a tie for 29th. It's also just a really hard course as well. Only 2 players finished under par, and the first players was 6 under, and then second place was 1 under. So very, very tough course to handle. Unfortunately, they also had some bad games from bad tournaments from Anna Laura Collado and Alyssa Lamaro. It's unfortunate that their UCF Knights careers are going to end like that, but with those roster spots now being open, now we can bring in some new, from fresh faces that could potentially help along with Zoe Alo and Tenrata Pidden, who have already proven themselves to be AAC Freshman of the Year and AAC Player of the Year, respectively, and be able to help the team be able to, instead of hindering them, because it's the combined score of 4 golfers that gives the team its score. So I'm very interested to see what new faces Coach Emily Marin will bring in. She's a great coach, and I think she'll do fine. And then I'm excited to see what else we'll be able to see out of Pidden and Alo, because if this season's any indication, they can really put together some good tournaments when they're really on the money.
Women's tennis beat Alabama in the first round of the NCAA tournament 4-0 down in Coral Gables before falling to number 9 Miami in the second round. So close once again for UCF women's tennis, but just couldn't get the win in Miami's place, losing 4-1. So their season ends at 16-8 as well. But a job well done once again for Brian Kanyeko and his team also getting to the postseason.
Oh yes, indeed, and there's a little bit of flashbacks here, Eric, because Jeff, Eric's here too. Because this team swept Alabama to open up the postseason back in 2019, and then they go to the second round and they lose against Miami, which is something this team is familiar with as well. So it's unfortunate they couldn't get past the second round, but I will say that very well done to Nandini Sharma, who picked up a win in singles play against Alabama to tie the second longest singles play winning streak in program history. Unfortunately, that streak came to an end when she lost to Miami's Audrey Bach-Collins, but still an absolutely well done stretch this season for Nandini Sharma, and they still managed to pick up the doubles point against Miami, which isn't nothing. So very well done season. They're only going to be losing one player in Evgenia Levashova. So hopefully this coming season, next season, they'll be able to hopefully get an ace, because that's one thing that I think this team needs. But as far as reliability goes, I think this team is very, very reliable, and I think we'll be able to see that going forward. But we're not done yet, because Marie Mattel is going to be in the NCAA Singles Championship from May 23rd to 28th. She's slated for that on May 23rd to May 28th after the team championship is all done. So while the team is done, we still have a little bit more women's tennis action to go in about 2 weeks.
All right. And last but not least, we do have one more postseason. Actually, 2 more postseasons, I should say, coming up. Men's golf is going to New Haven, Connecticut, to the NCAA regionals. They're going to face. They're going to be in the tournament against Yale, or hosted by Yale. I should say. It will take place from Monday, May 16th through Wednesday, May 18th. It's one of 6 regionals. The top 5 teams and the low individual not from one of those teams advances to the NCAA championship. And then also track and field. Here we go. This is the postseason for track and field. Bryson Turner is wringing his hands at this because the Knights once again sweep the weekly awards. Renaya Jones, of course, winning one of them. And this Friday, they head to the American Championships. And this is, again, a chance for UCF they should be one of the favorites to win the conference championship in the outdoor season based on their performance so far to this point, Bryson.
Oh, very much so. And what's really exciting for me is that Renaya Jones is just one of plenty of weapons that this team has. Latasha Smith has broken out this season in the 400-meter events. Adrian Adams set a new school record in the discus throw. Ashira Collins has been doing very well in the jumps alongside Jasmine Scott Kilgo. Brittany Floyd has been doing extremely well in the heptathlon. There is plenty of weapons that this team has at its disposal that a championship is a very real possibility for them. So I am very excited to see this tournament. Hopefully they can sweep both the indoor and the outdoor championships this weekend.
And rowing heads to the American Athletic Conference Championships as well. The Knights looking to get back on top of the American. They dominate. Remember, Eric, they dominated the American 5 straight championships, got knocked off their perch last year. Now they're coming back. Oak Ridge, Tennessee is the host for the AAC Championships on Sunday, an all-day event on Sunday. This used to be out in Sarasota, right, Eric? Over by Drew? Somewhere out there on the West Coast, and now it's up in Oak Ridge, Tennessee.
I don't remember all that. I do know that this will be an interesting tournament because remember SMU won last year, and I think going in SMU's the favorite. So, and again, remember if you don't win the conference championship, you're not guaranteed to make the tournament. So this is your best shot. So
right.
We'll see how they come out here on Sunday.
Yeah, forgive me for going on about rowing for a hot second, but again, this particular sport to me is exciting to follow because number one, yeah, you have a number of scholarship athletes in rowing, but there are a lot of walk-ons on the rowing team that come on board and are regular students walking around the campus, just like we were, and just like you are, Bryson. And yet they're on this rowing team, and they share in this as well, not just being part of the main varsity boats, but they're on those ergs every day at the UCF rowing facility in Lake Pickett, working hard. And to me, I always thought like rowing was like the people's sport, because I saw so many rowers quite often out there. I remember as a student, because they were all working, they were all there, and they were all walk-ons, and they were there to, some of them were there like, hey, I want to get in shape, but they made the team. So I'm a huge fan of it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing them hopefully get back on top. And then one last little bit of news as well, Bryson Turner. Looks like we have one more addition to the men's basketball roster to talk about.
Yes, we got word from his personal social media, and UCF men's basketball, I believe, retweeted it. Jalen Young is going to be coming to UCF from Baton Rouge Community College. So now we have a JUCO transfer to add to this men's basketball roster. There's still 2 scholarship roster spots remaining. So we're still gonna probably see a couple more moves from Johnny Dawkins in that perspective. But looking at what Young did as Young did at BRCC, he did extremely well. He ended up getting 398 points, which, for comparison, the second highest score on the team last season, 222 points. Went
13.1 a game too, and he shot. He wasn't a great 3-point shooter, only 29%. But he's a 6'2" freshman guard, originally from Dallas, Texas. So he should be able to help out at least quite possibly as a 1, because he averaged 2.6 assists per game, but also could help out as a 2, I think, coming off the bench as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that would probably be what I imagine that he would be very great at, because Dawkins is, with the players that he's brought in now, Dawkins, I think, unless training, unless the preseason and camp and all that stuff changes some things, on paper the starters are more than likely already there from the people that we've seen. Now the big thing is going to be finding the adequate role players and depth players on this basketball team. And for a guy like Jalen Young, like, bringing these JUCO guys is a great way to develop those things. And Young looks like is a very good raw talent on there for scoring. And I think that's going to be very good to have to back up who I would imagine Darius Johnson. So it'll be a good asset to have on the bench. And it'll be very interesting to see what he does.
All right. So we're hoping for some more of that. One last thing we want to end on. This is for us old hats, Eric Lopez. Happy trails to former UCF head men's basketball coach, and up until recently, assistant coach at the University of Iowa, Kirk Speraw. Kirk announced he would be retiring as of June the 30th, ending a 43-year career in basketball coaching. He coached 17 of those years were as UCF's head coach. UCF's only 4 conference championships as a Division I school came under Kirk Speraw, including back-to-back 2004, 2005. As members of the A-Sun, he coached UCF into the Conference USA days, was let go in 2010. But at the time, it was pretty clear, Eric, the impression that he left on UCF basketball in his more than decade of a half here at UCF. He was beloved by the students, beloved by us after we were students, and it was so helpful and beloved by his players, and not just his players, but all of us. I can personally attest to the impact that Kirk Speraw had on my life and my early career as a college student, as a student broadcaster. We were just a group of scrubs running around broadcasting basketball games, but he appreciated the fact that, we put forth the effort to put together a professional sounding broadcast every time. And we went on the road to places like Georgia State and Mercer, FAU, Jacksonville. And he made me a better broadcaster by, allowing his players to come and talk to us in post game afterwards, allowing his assistant coaches to come and do post game talks with us. And that allowed us to, hone our skills as interviewers with the student radio station at the time, WNSC, and also gave his assistant coaches the experience that they needed with us, and the amount of trust and faith that he had in us as students. Even if we weren't players, we weren't managers, I'll never forget it as long as I live. And I'm so thankful to Coach Kirk. He was a gentleman, a real wonderful ambassador of college basketball. And congratulations to Kirk on his retirement. Of course, his son, he's got 4 kids, Drew, Brooke, Dustin, and Bailey. Drew, most recently, he's an associate. He's an administrator with the WAC conference, the Western Athletic Conference, of course, played basketball here at UCF his last couple of years. Wow. I'm congratulations to Kirk. Yeah, he has meant so much to so many people who came through UCF at the time that we did, Eric, and times before that and times after that too.
Yes, that is correct. Everything you said is correct. I think he'll end up in the UCF Hall of Fame here down the road, and who knows, maybe we'll see him back sitting in the stands for a UCF game now that he's retired. Mike O'Donnell, shout out, make it happen, buddy. Let's go. Taylor Young, Let's make it happen.
Well, he's got a lot of people who want to bring him back down here. TY, you mentioned MOD, Jimmy Skiles, and
because I don't think he's been back since obviously he departed, and that was because he went to Iowa about a decade ago. So
he went to Iowa right after UCF let him go. He's been back.
No,
he's an Iowa alumnus. He actually played for Lute Olson.
Yeah,
everyone remembers Lute Olson at Arizona. Well, Lute was at Iowa prior to Arizona. Yes. He played for Lute there, and then went back to Iowa and was an assistant for 12 years.
Yes.
After leaving UCF. So
success helped build the Iowa program back to being a perennial tournament team there as an assistant. He's an Iowan, but a great guy. I'll never forget. Obviously, I dealt with him too as a student. And then even most recently, I would book him on the radio show when I was a producer on Tuck and O'Neill. He would be on during I would have him on from time to time to talk college hoops, especially during the tournament. Always great to hear him talk basketball. And I remember 2018, after head coach Renee Lewis-Gillespie left UCF to take the Iowa softball job. And the person that I actually reached out through Iowa's department was Kirk. I asked for Kirk. And I get the phone call from Kirk. And he's like, hey, man, what need is everything, it's like, hey, I'm not here to do I don't need any official quotes and everything. I just want you to tell me Renee just went there. Is she going to be taken care of over there? And he says, you got my word. I would not have told her to come if I didn't think she would get taken care of. And honor class personified. Should be in the Hall of Fame, UCF Hall of Fame eventually, sooner than later. And whatever that if they do UCF basketball alumni next year, maybe that could be a big moment there. We see the captain, Kirk Speraw, back on the court for the first time in over a decade. That could be a pretty emotional moment if it happens.
I hope so. Amen. I hope so. So congratulations, Coach Speraw, on an outstanding career in basketball. Job well done. We hope you come back home sooner rather than later because we miss you down here and we'd love to see you. So, all right. So that's going to do it for us here on the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. Thanks to Kyle Nash, the SOTG for the student of the game on Twitter. Thanks to Bryson. It's Bryson Turner. And of course, Eric Lopez Elo on Twitter, as well as myself, Jeff_Sharon. Thank you so much to Terry Mohajir for his time and Sytia Messer for her time. Also, thanks to John Heisler and Megan Herboth from UCF for helping us set up those interviews as well. Make sure you follow us at UCF Banneret _SBN on Twitter, Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret. Download this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. If you already do, send us a rating. Let us know how we are doing. And don't forget to share this podcast with a fellow UCF friend whenever you get the chance. So for Kyle Nash, Eric Lopez, Bryson Turner, I'm Jeff Sharon saying thank you so much for listening. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Enjoy the weekend.